just to name a few. Your dedication, compassion, and expertise are a lifeline for so many, and we are grateful for all the work that you do every day to ensure that survivors are met with care, respect, and resources that they need to heal. It's an honor to work beside all of you. To every survivor here today, please know that your voice matters. Your experience is valid, and you deserve to heal. To those who support survivors, whether you're friends, family, partners, faculty, staff, law enforcement, thank you for being a critical part of this support system. Together, we are building a community of strength, resilience, and safety. Help us to continue to raise awareness, break the silence, and work toward a world where sexual assault is no longer a part of any story.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dana Fortunato Kazlik, and I'm the Assistant Dean of Students here at Misericordia. Firstly, I'd like to thank the Victims Resource Center for their continued partnership. I feel incredibly grateful to be able to work together to promote such a powerful cause. I come to you today as an Assistant Dean and former therapist, wife and mother, survivor and an ally. I have worked with victims of every capacity for a majority of my career, and as I return to my roots today, combined with the mission of this institution, I feel it necessary to speak about the power of community in healing. As humans, the theme of shame takes so many forms within us after a tragedy. Could I have done something different? How did I let this happen? What will others think of me or my family? I'm here to tell you that shame is a thief of reality. To quote world-renowned author and researcher Brene Brown, if you put shame in a petri dish, it needs three things to grow exponentially: secrecy, silence, and judgment. If you put the same amount of shame in a petri dish and douse it with empathy, it can't survive. That's what we're all doing here in this very moment. Dousing our shame and empathy by simply being present for one another.
You need to go sit down. It's going to be a
Sitting
long
with
time.
whatever we are each bringing with us to
I'm
this
not going
place
to be
today.
passing out. Go sit down.
It's truly seeing another
It's
person
okay.
and walking beside them, even though you may not know what the path will bring. I commend you all for being here today and being part of so many healing journeys. So with that, on behalf of the university, we see you and we're with you. Thank you.
There are countless professionals in our community who work with crime victims on a daily basis. They understand victims' crucial role in the criminal system. They understand that treating victims with dignity and respect is not only the right thing to do, but it's also the most effective way to bring offenders to justice. In many cases, members of law enforcement have the first contact with victims. This first contact is so critical, and we are so grateful for the support that local law enforcement shows to victims. Our next speaker is from Dallas Township Police Department, Officer Gina Fatowski, School Resource Officer.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you, College Misericordia, for giving me the opportunity to come and speak here tonight for this very important cause. As she said, my name is Gina Katowski. I am a police officer with the Dallas Township Police Department. I've been with the department for 11 years. I'm a police officer for 16 years. I'm a wife of 33 years, and I'm a mom to two boys, ages 26 and 30. Kind of been there, done that, kids. My police department is made up of my chief of police, who is here. We have an assistant chief of police who is also here. He is also our canine officer. We're made up of one sergeant at the time. We have two PERS detectives and 7, soon to be 8 sworn police officers. Most of us, except for that young buck who just started with us, all have kids. So, you know, you kind of don't really mess with a mama bear. That's what I'm kind of known for. A school resource officer and as a police officer. That's kind of my thing. Anybody knows Officer Gina, that's kind of what I'm known for. I just would like to reiterate that it is very important that a crime is reported sooner rather than later, and that's for several reasons. Not because we want to know your business, or anybody wants to embarrass you, or anybody wants to shame anybody. We like to just get the mind while the mind is still fresh, while you still could give us the facts. We can better preserve evidence that way, fingerprints, any type of cans that were dropped at the scene, any type of photographs that you may not think is important or necessary to a crime scene, it could later be very, very important. Unfortunately, you may become victim of a crime. We need to preserve DNA. DNA is very vital within 24 to 48 hours. That's not to say that you actually would have to prosecute at that very moment, but it is to say that we need that very important information and DNA samples sooner rather than later. We can put it away, we can keep it for the statute of limitations when you're ready to come out and talk about things. That's all fine. We'll go over all of that with you. We're here to guide you. We're here to help you to continue not to be a victim, but guide you through in seeking justice. That's kind of our jobs. Together we act, and united we will change. Thank you.
Thank you, officer. It is very easy to read about crime online or to hear about it on TV. It is more difficult to deny the impact that crime has when there's a name and a face attached to it. It becomes so much more than a number or just a statistic. I would now like to turn this rally over to the courageous survivors who are sharing their stories with us tonight. Our first survivor speaker tonight is Stephanie, survivor, homeschool mom, public notary, and author. Stephanie?
Hi. Thank you for having me. I have something a little bit easier. My story is not as it's not as compact. I have many years. I was, born into a sexual assault in my life. Ritual sex abuse is real, and it continued on through my life as I attracted the same kind of people and traffic. So I'm gonna read my story if you can bear with me. It's awfully long, but as she mentioned, when there's a face and a name, and it's a little bit hard to go unnoticed. And I had gone unnoticed for many years, and if it weren't for people coming together and finally having a support system and a true team, real team players and coming together, then I wouldn't be here to tell you my story today. So thank you for having me again. When we're alone in our battle, it is almost impossible to survive. Having a support system of people to ask, listen, and believe is the most critical part to victims surviving and recovering. We must rise up in unity and raise our voices for the voiceless. And as the theme says, together we act, united we change. Can't do it alone. I had started out a very depressed child. I was wounded by abuse and sexual trauma. Sex ritual abuse is a thing. And I was raised experiencing extreme trauma at the hands of my abusive parents and neglect, and being molested by my uncle, forced into acts of incest with my brother, also being raped by a priest as a teenager, trafficked by strip club owners from the age of 16 to 18, abandoned by my own mother 3 times even as a teenager before that. My parents argued over who didn't want me when they got divorced in front of me and who wanted my brother. And my mother was so angry about getting stuck with me that she jumped a plane to Italy, and that was the first time she abandoned me. I think I was roughly 13, 14. She came back and decided she wanted to be Catholic. And that's where the incident with the priest started happening. I had a very operatic voice. And he met me in the choir room, faithfully. And he started taking me on trips with 7 other girls that he was also sexually abusing and sexually assaulting at the church. And on one particular occasion, he took us on a cruise to Jamaica, the Cayman Islands, me and one of the other girls. And the other girl was for him, and I was rented to the crew. And I was taken down below decks, and it happened to be my moon cycle time of the month. My daughter's here, so I wanted to be a little bit careful. And I can't tell you how many people, and I thought for sure that this is it, this is where I'm gonna die, this is how I'm gonna die. this is it. This is how my life ends. This is how my story ends, but it didn't. And thank God my grandmother was able to rush her to the hospital and get by aboard shore because I was, I had a feminine item lodged quite deep. And thank God for her taking me and saving my life. The only person that listened to me and cared. And then he took me on a personal trip to Orlando, to Universal Studios, and at the hotel, he had gone into the restroom, and I thought, it's my chance, I can get away. And I rushed out the door, and I picked up the phone, the payphones, right? This is before cell phones, cameras, and security. And I tried to call my grandmother Colette. She answered the phone, and I was shaking so badly that I couldn't get the words out. I said, Granny, this isn't what you think. This isn't what you think. And she said, what's going on with you? Enjoy your trip with everyone. They thought there was other parents and chaperones. And here he came around the corner, and he hung his phone up. And he just took my hand and took me back to the room and had his way with me. Well, eventually my mother, of course, abandoned me 2 more times, and I was left to myself about 16 years old, and I ended up being trafficked by strip club owners because that was the only people that I had to turn to. Was other people that gave me the fake ID so that I could go strip. I was about 17, barely turned 17. And Southwest Florida, I'm originally from Florida, and they trafficked me all over Southwest Florida and Southeast Florida and up the coast. And I was placed on the bar or a table as a party favor. And party favors are something you can do whatever you want with, right? They get torn up and beat up and everything you can imagine. We're not talking the centerpiece. And I was called a party favor and I was drugged, and I don't really remember much after that once they put me on the bar at the table. And eventually I started having babies at 18, my first son. And I knew when I started deciding that I wanted to have babies that if I could love my parents that didn't want me at all, that hated me, didn't love me, if I could love them, then how much more would I be able to have love for my children where I had never received love and I was desperate for love. That's all I wanted, was to be loved. And so when I started having babies, I knew they'd love me and I could pour out that love that I never had anyone to give it to. But the problem was I was still attracting those abusive people. I ultimately ended up with my first abuser by 21 and having 2 babies with him, introduced to drugs at that point, not because I was partying, but I was looking for something to numb the pain. He knocked me off behind the wheel of my car, April Fool's Day, 1999. I went through a palm tree in a brick house. He had knocked me out completely, and they had to take apart the car with the jaws of life and airlift me, and he stayed in the hospital and beat me every single day if I wouldn't give him my pain medicine. Every single day. Every single day. I had a broken femur. I shouldn't even have been alive. And he would punch me in my leg, whatever he had to do to make sure that I was going to give him that drug. And 1 year and 3 days later, he sicked Rottweilers on me. I had already had my second child and I was pregnant with my third. It was my grandma's birthday, April 4th, 2000, and I was going to go call her on the payphone, and he sicked 2 Rottweilers on me. And they mauled me. I have scars that I could show, but there's no need for that. I'm sure you guys can imagine. And if it weren't for a woman that lived on the street behind that saw it out of her kitchen window and came flying up in the driveway honking the horn and scared the dogs off me, I wouldn't be here today. Eventually, I got so deep into the drugs and lost custody of my beloved babies that all I wanted was to love them and to have someone to love me back, because I had never known love. And instead, I longed for death, because now the babies that I wanted so bad were taken, and that was the only piece of me that was alive. And I wanted death. I wanted death so bad because I had nothing to live for, that instead of beating me, I wished he would just kill me. I wished my abuser would just kill me. I didn't want to live like this anymore if this was all there for me. And I was convinced that I was going to die right there, and this is how my story ends. Nobody would listen to me. no counselors, no police, no judges. I couldn't get a protection order if my life depended on it, and it did. Eventually, at about 32, I got pregnant with my fourth child, whom I was already so defeated that I gave her up. I was so addicted, desperately addicted, and tried to kill myself with the drugs that I almost killed her in my belly, and she had seizures actually, and strokes in my belly. Ashley, she's 17 now. And I finally got set free after I got away from that abuser, but I attracted one more, and this one I ended up marrying, and I thought, my hero, he's getting me away from this abuser that has relentlessly stalked me and beat me, pistol whipped me, raped me with various items, right? So I married this man, and I knew I was gonna have a baby with him. I knew I was gonna have one more chance, one more crack at motherhood. God had showed me, and that was real. And while he was in prison, I turned my life around. I got saved. I started living this whole new life, and I had learned in the midst of that I had a choice in the matter, that I had a voice that I didn't know I had. I had heard a voice that I didn't know I had, that when nobody else would listen, I could still shout it from the rooftops, and I started sharing my story. And it was terrifying, terrifying. But that's when people started listening, and all of a sudden I started having counselors and pastors and people that would listen, and a support system starting to surround me. It was very scattered, but it began. And I realized I could choose to not use drugs, and I didn't have to die. I could choose not to die, and I didn't have to do that. And maybe I could actually live, and I use this voice that I found. And when we left Florida, I had just had my daughter, my beautiful little girl right here, my albino angel Lily. She was born 10 weeks premature because the abuser had sick dogs on me, and I'd have these wonderful bite marks. He wouldn't give me the antibiotics. He wouldn't give me water. He wouldn't give me food. And I started having contractions, and I was able to use that as an excuse. He didn't want to go to jail for killing a baby inside my belly, right? So I was able to get away from him. And she was born premature. She wasn't supposed to live that night, but she did. And she gave me a reason to live. And I continued to fight, and I left Florida. And I continued to fight, and then her dad found us up here, begged for this, had the courts convinced that he needed another chance to be with his daughter, and the cycle began. But I now knew that I could choose not to be a victim, that I had survived this far, and I wasn't gonna die right there like that. I wasn't gonna die like that. That now I had a voice, I had a support system, and I have a choice that I can make, and I used it. And thank God for Patrick. Thank God for the Victims Resource Center. Thank God for decent judges, just magistrates, and just police officers that refused to back down and surrounded us. Even when we got that protection order, praise God, we got a protection order, even one for her. I should be dead with the way he was assaulting me. And he was still stalking us, and it was literally to the point that if something didn't happen, our support system was just as concerned as we were that we would have a visit from the coroner any day. And 1 year ago, January 17th, he met his own demise when they finally approved violations on those protection orders. And if it weren't for those wonderful judges and police officers with the surrounding of counselors and support, together we act. United we change. He died of his own hands by addiction that night. And it was a horrible death. I'm sorry it ended the way it did. She's crushed that her dad is gone. But I was so grateful to be alive and to be able to share with you today that you don't have to live as a victim. You don't have to let yourself be held down. You have a choice to live, and you have a voice. And I just want to share a quick story. You know, that when we're in our darkest moments like that like a chessboard, there's a painting, and there's a story about it, and then I'll end it with this. There's a painting, and it's called Checkmate, and it's a chessboard board, right? And I don't know if you guys have seen it, college students, a lot of people maybe have seen it. And it shows the devil on one side and this guy on the other side, and he's sweating because like the king is the only one left, and it looks like he's in checkmate. So the painting's called Checkmate. And we had some guests coming through, and they were giving a tour. And this one guy was in front of it, and he's champion chess player, world champion chess player. And the whole tour is gone, and he's standing there looking at this painting. And the guy comes back, the tour guide, he said, "We're moving on." He said, "You know I'm a world champion chess player, right?" And that this painting, either they're gonna have to change the name, or they're gonna have to change the painting. Because the king still has one more move. He was still surrounded by, by his safety net. He still had a safety net. He had one more move. And when it looks like you're in your darkest and all those pawns and flying monkeys are picked off, and you're just standing there, and you know that if something doesn't happen right now, and I don't make this choice, then I'm gonna die right here. I'm in checkmate. No, you're not. There's still one more move. When you have your support system and you have those people ready to stand for you, your knights, right? Your pieces that are standing around you, these are your support team. Together we act united, we change. And you can change somebody's life by standing around them and being that shield. And when you have that support team, if you're a victim, then when you have that support team, you can't be put in checkmate. And you're not going to lose this battle. Thank you for having me.
And now hear from homicide survivor Melody, sister of Brian.
Thank you.